Good morning, everyone. And
Hey, Brian, you flying a desk today?
yes, absolutely, flying the desk. No airplanes today. So I would ask everyone to go ahead and mute themselves, except for the presenters today, if we could. And just want to welcome everybody to the Peters Township Chambers Community Update Series for Peters. Hope everyone is doing well. Facilitating with me today is Kelly Keene, our operations coordinator. Kelly, thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Just to give you a little background, the Chamber is a 501c6 membership-based nonprofit. We receive no government funding. I know everybody thinks we work for Paul as much as we'd love to. We are our own nonprofit entity. In addition to serving Peters, our area of coverage also includes the South Hills in northern Washington County. Our mission is to provide connections, opportunities, partnerships, and resources to grow our businesses and serve our communities. And quite simply, we promote, we advocate, we connect, and we educate. The Chamber is open, albeit remotely, as you can tell. I'm in my command center here at my house on the first floor, better known as a basement. And because at times like these, we cannot and will not close because we're busier than ever. I'd first like to thank our sponsor today, Washington Financial Bank. We could not do without them and the rest of our sponsors, especially during these difficult times. So joining us today for the PT Community Update, we have Mr. Paul Lauer, the Township Manager. We have Chief Doug Grimes from the PT Police Department, and Chief Mike McLaughlin and Lieutenant Jordan Kramer for the Fire Department. So thanks, guys. Appreciate you joining us. A little Zoom 101. Chief McLaughlin reminded me that so for you that are on the panel, if you do want to speak, you can hit the space bar. I've asked everybody else to please remain muted for the entire update to eliminate the background noise. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to you. For those of you that maybe have not used the Zoom before, on the top right, if you hit the gallery, you get to see everybody who's on with us today. And that's sort of nice. And for those of you that were a little concerned this morning, you didn't get your link. We delayed sending that link because we wanted to minimize the possibility of Zoom bombing. And if you haven't seen that yet, just Google it. So we just didn't want to get the link out there too early and too much available. So the format for today is, and I'll begin moderating a discussion with our guests. Time permitting, we'll follow up with some Q&A. So if you have a COVID-19 related question, you can use the chat feature to ask your question. And that chat box is located at the bottom of your screen. We would ask again that everybody please remain muted while we're doing the update. So without further ado, let's get started. And Paul, I guess, just to get started, how about just a general question, maybe give us a brief update on some of the changes that are occurring due to COVID-19 and the stay-at-home order, et cetera.
Well, let me preface my remarks with this. You know, what we're faced with is dealing with locally with an emergency that's actually global in nature. And what constitutes an appropriate response to that emergency today will not be what is appropriate tomorrow. The fact of the matter is the situation is fairly dynamic, and we keep adjusting based upon information that is provided us. So what we're going to present today is going to reflect the current state of affairs, and like I said, it will change. And what I would encourage people to do is, if you want to stay informed, you should visit our website, where there is information with regard to local services that are being impacted by the COVID emergency. Also to visit our Facebook page. And the other thing that I would encourage people to do, all of our council meetings are streamed, and there is a council meeting coming up on on Monday with modified rules, but that meeting will be streamed so that people can stay informed as to what council is doing and authorizing in terms of the emergency. Normally in local emergencies, the community relies on the emergency service providers to ensure the safety of the community. During a crisis, during this crisis, the emergency service providers remain on duty. The police department is on duty, the fire department is on duty. But what I think is fundamentally different about this emergency than those that we normally are faced, that the difference isn't going to be made by the response from the ambulance service or the police department or the fire department. The difference is going to be made based upon the individual actions of community members. And that's what's going to make a difference in terms of the safety of our community and the safety of our region. And while I understand that the stay-at-home order and social distancing is a challenge for everyone, the fact of the matter is it's all that stands between us and the disastrous effect of COVID-19 that we see elsewhere. So in terms of our own municipal operations, the township's open for business. Although we're not accepting visitors in our buildings, including the municipal building, we remained open for business. We are taking calls, we are accepting emails, and we're responding. Council continues to meet, but they meet under modified rules. One of the things that I always have enjoyed about this community, it values inputs from its residents. That has been somewhat curtailed as a result of COVID. We are not accepting comments on non-agenda items. If you have comments for agenda items, the agenda will be posted tomorrow. You can email those in or give me a call, and we will convey those messages to council. But to give you an example of how we are open for business, we are continuing to accept and review building permit applications. Our goal is to issue those building permits as soon as the stay-at-home order is lifted. New residential and new commercial construction is a prohibited activity under the stay-at-home order. But we understand how important that is to our community. So we want to get that segment of our business community in our township up and running as soon as we can. If there are two program areas that the township offers that have been severely impacted, it is, of course, the library and the Parks and Rec Department. Prior to the order for the state of Pennsylvania to close schools, we have been meeting with the school district to coordinate our response in case the schools would have to close. And the decision was made at that time in conjunction with the school district that if in fact the schools closed, we would close down the library and we would close down the programs and that are being offered through the Parks and Rec Department, given that same population was being served by both. The one thing I will say about the library, if you get a chance, you owe it to yourself to go visit the library, and you do that visit online, digitally. Long before COVID-19, the library has been engaged in a process of creating a very dynamic online presence. They've been very creative in this period of time to expand that. And if I could give you just one example, one of our really popular programs in the children's area is an escape room program that is designed around the Harry Potter theme. And when that program was going to be offered in the period of time right as the library closed. So they took that program and they made it an online program. And the response to that has been remarkable. There have been over 75,000 visits from about 17 countries around the world to the Peters Township Library to participate in that program. It has been recognized by the American Library Association as an alternative, creative effort to keep libraries relevant during this period. And I commend the staff of the library for what they've been able to do there. The parks remain open. What is closed, however, is the playground areas, the community recreation center, and Field 5, which is the synthetic turf field up in the park. The reason for that last closure was that what we discovered was we have lots of enthusiastic soccer players in town, and we're trying to encourage people to practice social distancing. We had a lot of teenagers engaged in pickup soccer games there that really don't match up well with what we're trying to do in terms of social distancing. If you want, I can go through the kind of services that have been changed and interrupted and how we're dealing with those. That's up to you, Brian.
Absolutely. Please, sir.
Okay. So, like I said, the municipal building is closed, but feel free to call 724-941-4180, and someone will answer your call for service. One of the things that has occurred is that our income tax collection deadline has been extended to July 15th. So people have an expanded opportunity to be able to file and that filing be considered on time. In terms of garbage collection, this has been somewhat of a challenge. As everybody probably knows, our garbage collection is done by a third party, Waste Management. They have been faced with real challenges. If you've been watching what's happened in the city of Pittsburgh, there's a real concern amongst the people who work hard to collect all that garbage about being safe. So what is not going to occur while the stay-at-home order is in place is that there will not be any pickups of bulk items. They don't want to have multiple people on the truck and expanding the chance for spreading COVID. They also are not picking up grass clippings, brush, and tree limbs. They're encouraging that all trash be in the container. And one of the things about our containers, as I've been reminded on many occasions, they are large. And if all your trash does not fit in those containers, you can place plastic bags to the outside, but they will not pick up anything that is left loose on the outside. In terms of recycling, the recycling needs to be contained in the bin, and that includes the cardboard that some people stack outside of their bin. If you've got cardboard and you want to dispose of it, we have a cardboard compactor that sits down at the fire department. It is still open for business, and I would encourage you to use that. In terms of electronic and household waste, we have a very popular program so that can be picked up at your door. That program remains intact, and if you go onto our website, there is an 800 number that you can call to be able to do that. For the most part, our advisory board meetings have been canceled for the month. Our hope is that as soon as possible, those advisory board meetings can be reinstituted. One thing that really isn't a township matter, but one of the things I would encourage people to consider is you could apply for a mail-in ballot for the upcoming election. And those mail-in ballot applications are going to be accepted up through May 26th. And, this is an opportunity for people who aren't comfortable going out to vote to be able to do what is perhaps one of the most important things we do, which is to express their opinion with regard to the political process. So with that, we can turn it over to Mike or Doug.
Just a couple notes. I have to also reiterate the library. I did have a brief discussion with Myra, and there are so many opportunities there. In fact, one of them that interested me, and I guess, I'm a pretty simple guy, but there's an app out there that you can go out and take a picture of a butterfly or whatever, and it'll identify it, for goodness sakes. And that's one of thousands of opportunities that you can actually get outdoors and do something as well. So we are very thankful for our library. How about the glass, Paul?
The glass recycling container is located up at the fire station, and it is still there and open for business. It's important that when people use that container that you follow the rules that are posted. Glass has to be loose. It can't be thrown in bags. It is jars only. It is not plate glass, fishing tanks, and all those other things. That's a different type of glass.
Oh, very good. Very good update. Chief Grimes, how about you? Let me unmute you here for a second.
How about now?
You're good, sir.
Okay. By way of a brief update regarding the police department, since the onset of the pandemic, we do continue, as Mr. Lauer indicated, to be open for business. However, we're closed to anyone coming inside the police station. The exception to that would be an actual physical arrest of someone that cannot be pursued through other means. The rules of criminal procedure in Pennsylvania allow for us to proceed by summons, which is essentially a promise to appear in many cases. And in those instances, we're enacting that or utilizing that provision and leveraging it to prevent from having to take someone into physical custody. This protects both the officers and the people that we deal with. When that occurs, we do fill out a criminal complaint and proceed by mail. In other cases where we have to physically arrest someone, we are taking them into custody, taking them before a district justice to be arraigned, and then transporting them to detention. In those cases, we do have protocols in place that include, if when possible, for the officers to protect themselves through personal protective equipment or the utilizing of specific techniques in regards to transportation and handling of the prisoners. That's followed up by proper cleaning of the cars and the equipment that's used, the station, if they're on station, the holding cell, et cetera, et cetera. We have a strict protocol that we follow for personal hygiene following a potential exposure, and proper maintenance is encouraged for the officers to make sure that their uniforms are cleaned properly after something like that. In regards to our normal duties, our regular patrols, we are performing our normal patrols. So you should still be seeing the officers in our neighborhoods and around the business districts. The one caveat to that is that normally I encourage the officers to engage people as they see them, especially kids, but that is being discouraged right now. And we're trying to refrain from that personal contact, direct contact, and I would ask the public to do the same. Don't approach a police officer unless you need them for some type of emergency. There's a time for community policing, and unfortunately, this is not that time. One of the questions that we routinely get is, when should someone call 911? And there's been some recent confusion about this based on some press releases that were put out. But from a police perspective, at a minimum, I would say, the time to call the police is when you need us, regardless of what that call is for. If it's an ordinance violation, it could be anything from a boundary dispute to a minor traffic crash, a theft, a burglary, an assault. It doesn't matter. When you need a police officer, the avenue to reach the police is to use 911. Call that number. The 911 center has trained dispatchers to take the proper information and then dispatch the police, the appropriate police officer or department, to that call. And it all starts at the 911 center. So it's very important that people understand that, and we have to work to kind of alleviate that confusion that currently exists, because people currently think that if it's not an emergency, they should call the police station. The problem with that is, number one, after a certain time of day, there's no one here to answer the phone. The patrol officers are out on the road. They only routinely stop in. And the other problem is that all of our incidents are generated through 911, where an incident number is assigned and call details are taken and tracked and logged there at 911. So, that is where it all begins. That said, I would encourage the public not to call 911 to talk to them about the stay-at-home order or to complain about an essential business that they think is operating outside of the limits that the governor's order imposed. They are good people up there at the 911 center, and they're working very hard to try and dispatch police, fire, and EMS where they're needed. They're not really there to answer those types of questions during this time, at least. In regards to the stay-at-home order, throughout my 35-year career in law enforcement now, I can say I've had the good fortune of working and living in many places throughout this Commonwealth. And I can say without reservation that Peters Township is one of the best places I've ever lived and worked. One of the things that makes this true is the residents who live here who get it. They understand what this is all about. And for the most part, what we see on our patrols are people who are complying with the governor's request to apply social distancing, to stay at home, to only go out when necessary. And so as a result of that, we have not had the need for businesses or individuals to be confronted by police for violating those orders. We have had some calls, and we've gone out and talked to people and explained maybe some of the circumstances or situations, why what they're doing is problematic, and they've very graciously and quickly agreed to change whatever was going on. So insofar as enforcement of the governor's order, we have not engaged in that at this point in time. Scams, we do continue to see some scams. When I first took over and we started to track this a little bit closer, we saw a significant increase in identity theft and scams in this area. And I don't know if that's as much as an actual increase in the offense as it was in the methods that were used to track those offenses. But that continues to be a problem. And during a time of crisis like this, it's not unusual to continue to see scams develop and people be built out of money or something that they have that they would like to keep. So it's important that people recognize not to give out at any time, whether it's now or even after this is over. Do not give out your personal information over the telephone. We continue, in fact, right before this phone call, I got a phone call on the police station phone, my direct phone line, saying that I was going to be investigated by the IRS and I needed to call right away. These scams continue to work their way through the system. People just need to know not to give that information out. From a personal perspective, I would encourage you all to continue to comply with the governor's orders and stay home. Except for doctor's visits, going to the pharmacy, getting groceries, those essential life necessities, with those exceptions, please stay home and let's get through this together. Some of the initiatives that we have taken on, really there's nothing new except to say that because of the stay-at-home order and the way things are trending in this period of time, our call volume is down about 40 to 45%. Because of that, our patrols are out there with not a whole lot to do. So they're driving around looking more proactively for activity that's going on, and trying to head things off at the pass as opposed to being reactive. We're being more proactive. And without getting into details about how that is and how we're handling traffic stops and those citizens encounters, suffice it to say that the guys are being proactive. The question was asked of me, how can the public best help us? Best way to help us is to stay at home. And as I said, most people around here, most of our businesses seem to be following that. The second thing you can do is don't call 911 and inundate them with questions in regards to the stay-at-home order or COVID-19 or any type of a protocol. All those things can be researched online. Allow those precious folks up there at Washington County 911 to do their job and dispatch police, fire, and EMS where we're needed. Take this time to organize your garage, clean out that desk, organize a room, paint something, do whatever, but use the time wisely and not. The last thing I would like to say is just to remind you that we are here for you. If you need us, if there's any type of an emergency, that you feel you need the police for, please don't hesitate to call us. We will respond as fast and efficiently as we possibly can, and we'll address your concerns. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Just one of the things you brought up at the very beginning that's very interesting is I've not seen a police department take the community policing to the level that you guys have here at PT. It's actually unbelievable. We got, the two bikes, the bicycles out there. The guys are active. We got the motorcycle. They're very visible. So it's probably even tough, for them sometimes because they get to be less. They have to be less interactive. But hang in there. We'll be back soon, and hopefully we'll see them out and about and on the trails and around the community again soon. So, but thanks for your update. So,
Thank you.
Yep. Chief McLaughlin and Lieutenant Kramer, you guys are up.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you having us on today. So a couple things from the fire department's perspective. What the community might not know is that the fire department for Peters Township also handles emergency management. In this, we have an array of functions. And one of the things that was bestowed upon me was to become the emergency management coordinator when I took over as the fire chief. That's something that I've taken seriously since day one. And I've also, with the help of council, the township manager, Paul Lauer, Chief Grimes, and many other here at the fire department, we've adopted an emergency management plan or emergency operations plan in November of 2019. Not knowing that we would so quickly put this plan to test, we have done so, and so far I think it's gone pretty well. If you can see Lieutenant Kramer's screen, he joins us today from our Emergency Operations Center, which when we did our renovation here at the fire station was one thing as a community that we lacked. Part of Title 35 in the state of Pennsylvania requires every municipality to have some sort of emergency operations center, and until now we haven't had that. This EOC has been up and running in its ready state since excuse me one second, March 10th. And basically what that means is we've had at least a dedicated staff member either virtually or present in that room since then. For the most part, it's been Mr. Kramer, and I appreciate his efforts with that. But emergency management isn't a one-man band or a one-person function. This takes the coordination of township government, police, fire, EMS, community members, and buy-in from everybody to be able to accomplish the same goal together. So with that, what's kind of changed in our department since the COVID-19 emergency is we've shifted our efforts to not only encompass fire, rescue, EMS, and emergencies, but also emergency management as well. So we have a deputy fire chief that has stepped up his role when a bulk of my function becomes emergency management coordinator. He's taking on certain tasks involved with the fire department because we need to keep our business up and running. We remain open 24/7, 365. What's kind of dynamic about our organization is we have 17 career members. That includes part-time, full-time, and the 2 administrative chiefs. And it also includes our organization of about 30 volunteer members. Those volunteer members, for the first time, we've limited contact at the fire station. It's something that I've never imagined that we've had to do before, but volunteer members are coming in on an only as needed basis. They are still answering emergency calls. They're coming to the station for emergencies. None of that has changed. But our typical business, for example, yesterday, every month, the first Monday of every month, we are to host a business meeting where we pay all of our bills and do things like that. In this case, we've held that meeting virtually via the same platform that we're doing this meeting here as well. Getting buy-in and participation from all of our members at times like this can be difficult. We want to keep volunteers engaged. We want to keep paid staff engaged on days that they're off. And we've been able to do that via this platform as well. We have set up digital trainings, we've set up virtual trainings, and we've started our own YouTube channel to do things around the station with new equipment and how to operate that equipment that we've been sending to our members on a regular basis to keep them engaged as much as possible. More recently, here in the last couple months, we've upgraded our dispatch abilities where we separate out priority calls versus non-priority calls. Not knowing at the time that how helpful that would be in times like this, we're able to page out our volunteers and off-duty members when we really need them and bring them into the station. When they're here, they're still practicing social distancing practices, and we disinfect our building at least twice daily, every 12 hours at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. to ready for the shifts. I'd like to implore their involvement. If any of the volunteers or any of the paid staff, any of our members are on this call, I may or may not be able to see you. Thank you to them and to the community members for all of your understanding with how we've changed these operations during this time. Trainings, like we've said, have continued at the fire department. We train our firefighters every Monday night at 7 o'clock. The only thing that's changed there is they're now being trained virtually. One of our large programs through the fire department is our fire inspection and our pre-planning operation. As of right now, those two operations have been suspended and are not being done except on an emergency basis. For example, today, one of our essential businesses had an issue with their fire alarm system. We're able to go there, practice our social distancing, wear personal protective equipment, and help them with their issues. With personal protective equipment, us, like many other communities, many other government agencies, county, federal, have discovered a shortfall in what might be our PPE, or what is our PPE supply. That shortfall specifically was with the N95 masks, and this was a national shortfall. What we found is at the very beginning of this COVID-19 crisis, a lot of resources were dedicated to other countries who were getting this disease before the United States was. Manufacturers were shipping supplies over to them. Unbeknownst, it was going to come over here and come over here soon. So when we started purchasing supplies, it was around mid-February and had issues in doing so at first. We placed those orders, and with a stroke of luck, we were able to receive a good bit of supplies from our orders and our procurement process. In addition to that, we've also procured supplies through the county and through the region. Washington County is part of a bigger conglomerate of Region 13, which includes 13 counties on the western side of Pennsylvania. And there are caches of supplies dedicated for this region and this county. At times, these have been difficult to obtain, and the county has taken the approach of providing EMS agencies first, which is okay. Fire is second and police is third. Chief, I don't know why they keep classifying places like this, but they tend not to be worried about the fire department so much because we have self-contained breathing apparatus as well that we can use on an emergency basis. If we can breathe inside of a smoky atmosphere, we can breathe free of COVID-19. The trick is we have to generate our own air. Where everybody says air is free, it is, but we have a compressor here at our station that runs and fills our cylinders constantly that we continue to run and filter that air out. So that is our redundant bases. So over the last couple weeks, as part of the emergency management function, we have been in constant contact with the ambulance service. Where I cannot speak to their operations because the ambulance service is an independent business separate from the township and municipal government. Despite this, we have an outstanding relationship with them, always have and always will. Through this event, the relationship remains extremely strong and dynamic. As emergency management functions have dictated, we have assessed their needs and tried to assist them in providing PPE, supplies, and other things through the county and Region 13. We've made municipal requests, we've made emergency management requests through Region 13 in Washington County through what's known as the Knowledge Center. And we've been extremely persistent in trying to get the county to provide supplies to Peters Township. One of the things that I brought to council's attention is Peters Township incorporates about 11% of Washington County's total population. That's a lot percentage-wise compared to the rest of the county and the other, I believe it's 52 municipalities that reside in Washington. Making sure that we get our fair share of supplies to this area is extremely important. It's something the county has been very accepting of and helping us get. Their supplies too are also limited. So knowing this, they've been supplying what they can when they can to us. As many of you know, the federal government, the state government, and now our county government have declared what's called a state of emergency. What that means for Peters Township is every municipal or every form of government above us has declared that emergency, and soon it could and should be time for us to do the same. We have not exceeded our capacity as far as response, which typically dictates a disaster declaration, and we have not exceeded or had the need to fund our resources through an emergency. What is and could be available is our reimbursements through PEMA and FEMA through this emergency. Our expenditures have not been great through this emergency yet so far, but as this is probably going to go on for a couple of months, anything that we spend and categorize into this can become a reimbursable expense up to 75% of that expenditure. So what we're going to try to do and meet with council, and ultimately council is the one who decides this, is when it becomes time to do so. At some point in time through this, it will become time. When is the only matter, and that's when we'll try to start reimbursing some of our costs. Some of our largest costs have only been in the couple $100 range for PPE, disinfecting supplies. One of the things that we did have a need for, as far as PEMA goes, they've been giving us constant updates as to how to reuse our PPE so that we're not burning it at a rate that is normal, but also to keep ourselves safe outside of work. When our firefighters are paid part-time, full-time career staff, our volunteers come into the station, whatever they may have needs to stay with them and needs to not go home with them. The point with that being is if we're exposed to a call or exposed to a possible patient, our clothing may then be contaminated as well. We need to decontaminate those clothings ourselves here at the station and not take that home to our families. That's something we've been driving home, very important to all of our members. And on the police, fire, and EMS side, we've been working with all three agencies to remind them of the decon procedures. If we are exposed to a possible patient, how to properly decontaminate ourselves and to not contaminate our homes and keep our families safe. One of the biggest things that I worry about as a first responder in times like this is what I may bring home back to my family. My job is very important to me, and they are very important to me also, and making sure that they're safe through this process is the same thing that I share with all of our community residents to make sure that we're safe as well. Social distancing, we have done that here at the fire station almost to the extreme. We have placemats set up where certain people stand. I know Mr. Lauer can speak to this as well. There's been no personal meetings inside of his office that have really gone past the threshold of his door. And then the important thing here is to practice what we preach. And as a community, as the fire department, as the organization, we are preaching emergency management. We are preaching social distancing to try to get everybody to follow. We've seen excellent examples in the community of this, and we've seen some not so great examples of this. Most of it has been in education and really trying to interact with our community. Some initiatives that we've taken on with emergency management have been updating our website, updating social media, keeping the township involved as far as updates, and keeping their website involved as well. This is part of the reason why Mr. Kramer joins us from the fire department today. With emergency management not being a one-man band function, we need public information, and we need it in the most accurate and concise way. Like Mr. Lauer said earlier, today's information might not be as good as tomorrow's, so we're constantly trying to update that information. He's been paramount in that. With that, in an attempt to help our restaurants and businesses, the fire department has compiled a list of restaurants specifically that remain open and what changes with their services. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from that as well. There is a program that Mr. Kramer can touch about a little bit. That's the Neighbors Helping Neighbors program. This is done through McMurray Rotary and some of our other residents as well, trying to help each other out, all while practicing social distance policies and making sure that none of our residents go without things that they may need. As far as that goes, that's all I have for now. I appreciate everybody's time. I'd really like to mirror Chief Grimes' comments and say thank you to everybody who has helped us through this. As a community, we will get through this. As a nation, we will get through this. As a state, we will get through this. And the reason we're not seeing the mass amount of chaos that we are in this part of the state that they may be seeing in New York City, obviously our population is a little smaller, but at the same time, we're really practicing social distancing and regulations set forth by the federal and state governments that are allowing the spread of this disease to really slow down. And that's what it's about. To stop the spread is very, very difficult, but we want to slow the spread as to not overwhelm the healthcare system, first responders, and every step beyond that. With that, Brian, thank you again for hosting this. Thank you, everybody, for practicing their social distancing and staying safe out there. We remain here to serve you 24/7, 365. Should you need us, you know how to get a hold of us. You dial 911. And thank you, everybody, for your patience and assistance through this.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate you coming aboard. Please relay our thanks to all the men and women in the department there, our appreciation. A couple things I would like just to mention. That list of restaurants is actually on the fire department and the chamber Facebook page. And if it's not already, we'll make sure for those who do not have Facebook that we put that on our COVID-19 resources on our webpage as well. So I think that, and thank you so much for doing that. We really appreciate it. Regarding the PPE, I thought it was really nice. We sent out an email a couple weeks back to all of our members, and Dana Brogy from Allegheny Machine stepped up and sent some over to the ambulance department that they had in excess there. So again, if any of you have anything like the N95 masks and you want to help out, feel free to get them to any of our first responders. So,
Brian, if I may speak to that really quick too, and that's an amazing point I would like to drive home. We've mentioned at a council meeting as well, residents and business owners. We've received an amazing amount of support from our residents and our business owners, whether it be from lunch during the day to certain businesses setting aside N95 masks, not charging us or charging us what their cost is to obtain those masks. And some of the corporate policies that are happening, we have a lot of corporations here in Peters Township, specifically Giant Eagle, Miller's Ace Hardware, that operate on a national level or regional level that have provided us materials. Giant Eagle is allowing first responders to shop and shop early, also with first responders and the elderly over 65. And I don't know why elderly is over 65 anymore. I know a lot of 65-year-olds that are sometimes in better shape than I am. But what it really speaks to is the community, the organizations, and even on a national level with Miller's Hardware, their corporate standpoint is to deliver supplies to the local stores to distribute them at that level. If they would have distributed them to FEMA or even PEMA, Peters Township may never see those supplies. And that's something that's been extremely helpful to us. So, thank you to those organizations. There's many other organizations out there that are helping us every single day. It does not go unnoticed. We're trying to keep a list of what it is that they're doing, how they're doing it, putting thank yous out to them, and hopefully letters so that they can claim those donations on tax forms and things like that. So thank you to that.
no problem. We do have a couple questions here. One is for Paul. Please comment on the use of Arrowhead Trail due to its higher usage. Are there any courtesy policies in place, such as not walking in large groups and slowing down bicycles? My 80-year-old parents are using this trail, but notice these issues and are afraid to go back.
Well, I think one of the things that's unique in Peters Township is Arrowhead Trail. It is our main street. And this spring has been like every other spring, is that as the sun comes out, the trail is crowded. That is a challenge with regard to using the trail in light of social distancing. Having said that, I do believe it is possible to be able to use that trail if people practice common courtesy, and that's to stay to one side of the trail when you're walking, to distance yourself 6 feet from any group that may be using it. One of the things I would suggest is that has become, and it's a problem every spring, people don't realize or don't choose to access it at all points. So you can spread out where you access the trail from by going to Peterswood Park. You can park at the rec center. You can park at the football field. You can park down at the soccer field. You can park at the softball field, and all of those provide access to the trail from lots of different locations. The other thing about the trail is, and again, everyone's familiar with the paved sections of the trail, but quite frankly, if you go on the trail in the other directions, if you head on the trail to Bethel Park, if you head on the trail to South Park, if you head on the trail across Chartiers Creek, what you're going to find is that there are less people on the trail there. And people ought to take advantage of that, because that affords you that opportunity to be able to use the trail and to use it safely.
Gotcha. We have another question. It's basically a comment with a question. I think this is just sort of general in nature. When I pick up food at restaurants, I've noticed many workers close together and not wearing masks. Can a message be sent to the restaurants to encourage the use of masks while working in close proximity to others? Good point. I haven't, all my time has been delivery. So I haven't had a chance to actually get out to the restaurants, mostly due to the fact that I'm very susceptible to the COVID-19 with my past cancer history. So it could be pretty deadly for me. But I don't know, can anybody else comment on that? Have they seen this? I know maybe it's a good point when you're at a restaurant to sort of mention them to them, or call them later or whatever to sort of say, hey, that's one way to get them out. We can send something out to our member restaurants just as a reminder, and we can do that, and we will do that for you as well. But anyone else have any comments on that from our panel?
Well, the one thing that I would say is that what has happened is that the direction from the federal government with regard to masks has changed, and it's changed recently. So I do think it's something where people need to be educated, and if they're educated, I believe they'll do the right thing.
Very good.
Brian, I think that is something that we're going to try to address. We've been in communication with some of the businesses as we get different complaints and comments from residents. So we request them to abide by the social distancing order and whatnot, and they seem to be very willing to participate and in order to keep their employees safe and our residents. So I think Chief McLaughlin's on board as far as us sending a reminder out about those things.
Yes, exactly. And what the community has kind of done, and the township's stance on this, is not to tell businesses how to operate, when they should operate, and take that stance. All we're doing is educating them on what it is the state and federal government guidelines have been for that. We've had a couple instances with this, and the businesses have been extremely thankful for just being educated to this. We're not getting anybody in trouble. We're not doing anything like that. We're simply saying, here's ways to improve your customer's experience at your business by practicing social distancing. Here's some tips that we've seen at other businesses. If anybody's been to Target, you'll see X's on the ground, 6 feet apart where people should stand. We've done that with businesses in town to help them operate, because ultimately, once this does end, we want their image to remain as well as it was before this started as well. And we don't want businesses to get a negative image by not following these policies that have been set forth. So are we getting anybody in trouble for doing that? No. Is the township saying this is how you should operate? No. All we're doing is saying, here's the guidelines that have been set forth by state and federal and passing that along to them.
Thank you, sir. Paul, would you like to give any closing comments?
Muted.
I think it's unclear what can be done to bring comfort to people and communities when the scale of suffering is so great. It's my personal belief that in times like this, it's important to seek out and recognize and rejoice in acts of kindness and acts of hope and acts of resolve within our community. And if I could, I'd just like to give you a couple examples. You know, a very well established program within our community is the Meals on Wheels program. And that model is one that I've always found kind of interesting. It is the people generally in need are older. They are being serviced by a population of senior citizens who devote their time to preparing meals and delivering them to people who are shut in. As you can probably imagine, this model doesn't work well in this current condition, and the people who actually prepare those meals are no longer in a position to do that. Recognizing this possibility, the Meals on Wheels program, prior to the stay-at-home order, prepared extra meals so that people would have a meal for the following week that they could put in their freezer. In addition to that, they put together just-in-case boxes, which provided people essentials for meals for another week, plus some goods that would help them be able to continue on. Because they can't meet, the drivers of Meals on Wheels have adopted all the people on their routes, and they continue to resupply those people with donations that are coming into Meals on Wheels from the community with staple items. So those just-in-case boxes are being refilled so that our vulnerable population doesn't have to go out and shop. One of the things the Rotary is doing, they're involved in, there's a whole group of people who it is not a question of being able to afford food and supplies. It's a question of being able to safely go out and shop. And the Rotary, to their credit, has stepped forward in conjunction with some assistance from the fire department, and they're identifying people who need that shopping service. So they're out spending their own money, delivering goods to somebody's doorstep with a promise at some point in the future of being reimbursed. You know, one of the things that recently came out is this idea that as we go out in public now, the recommendation is that we all be wearing masks. One of our employees here is a member of a Quilters Guild that services this region. That Quilters Guild has gotten together, and they are now producing these types of masks and giving them to caregivers who otherwise may be unprotected. And they're doing that at their own expense and distributing them at their own effort. You know, I think there's probably nothing more hopeful in this world that one can do than plant a tree. I was contacted by an individual in town who lives next to a township-owned open space area that had suffered severe damage in a storm in a prior year. She has obtained a group of seedlings. Her family and others will be planting those seedlings during this period of time when they're staying at home. And like I say, I personally don't know of anything that in fact is more hopeful than that. You know, and in terms of resolve, I had the good fortune of receiving a call from a resident who's 92 years old. He explained to me that he was a veteran. He explained to me that one of the things that he values more than anything else is the fact that he gets the vote. And he has always voted, and now he finds himself in a position where he does not think that he will be able to safely go out and vote. And he and I got to be friends on the phone, and as I sat here and he provided the information needed to get him that mail-in ballot. I think it's those kinds of things. It's those acts of kindness. It's those acts of hope. It's those acts of resolve that will get us through this and get us through this as a community. And I applaud what people are doing. I applaud their support of our emergency service providers, and I really do have hope that at some point in time we'll be able to return back to normal. We all get to do those things that we like to do in Peters Township.
Thank you very much, Paul. And thanks to all of our presenters today. We really appreciate it. We've run out of time. A couple good questions there. We really appreciate those questions. Just want to let you know that the chamber is open for business. Again, our physical office is closed, but if you need to get in touch with us, email is best. We do check our phone at least twice daily. Our email address is info@ptcoc.org, and our phone number is 724-941-6345. A couple other things just to let you be aware of. We have a new Facebook group, the PT Chamber Community Support group. It's basically COVID-19, so if there's a change in your hours or if there's something relative to COVID-19, please feel free to check it out. I would also recommend that you keep an eye on our regular Facebook page and our website, and then for those of you that are members, your emails as well. Tomorrow we have a similar update with North Strabane Township. Anyone is again allowed to join that. You can sign up no later than 8 o'clock tomorrow morning for that one, and then we have Bethel Park on Thursday. We do have a health update with the Chief Medical Officer from the Washington Health System with Dr. John Six on Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And you can check these and all of our other events, virtual events, out and sign up at our website. Again, it's ptcoc.org. I do again want to thank all of our presenters. Thank you for your service. Please relay to all of your staff and folks out there that we really appreciate what they're doing. We appreciate your time. Want to say thank you to our sponsor, Washington Financial, and a special thanks to all of you who took the time to be with us today. Stay well, my friends. Have a good day.